Joel Embiid is more than ready than ever to take this team to the NBA Finals. We discuss the differences in his game coming up.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to the Locked On to the Philadelphia 76ers. My name is Kayla Santiago, media member alongside the one and only Keith Pompey at the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks so much for making the Sixers your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Network podcast for your team every day. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe below as well. And although we're diving into the Sixers, make sure that you are also locked on to your NFL. Of course, the season just started, and the MLB. If you want to place bets, you absolutely can, and there's no better spot to look than FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com. Okay, so the NBA is back. So exciting this time of year. And we have so much to talk about here tonight. We've got three main topics. Joel Embiid saying that he's lost 25 to 28 pounds. Is that realistic? Do we hear it every single year? We're going to have to wait and find out. He says all he cares is about an NBA championship. And for once for the Philadelphia 76ers, no drama. It sounds crazy. Are we waiting for the moment that drama does drop? Or is it for real that there will be no drama in this offseason? And then, of course, you have to look ahead at the top teams in the East right now. The New York Knicks, a team that beat out the Sixers a season ago. Well, hey, they got even better this offseason. Some might think, and they may be an even bigger issue for the Philadelphia 76ers. What's going on, everybody? Kayla Santiago here with you. I'm the sideline reporter for the Delaware Bluecoats and the fill-in play-by-play broadcaster, which is the NBA G League affiliate of the Philadelphia 76ers. I've been able to see a lot of the young talent develop for the Philadelphia 76ers. You think of names like Ricky Council, who was towards the back end of the team last year. And of course, I'm with the one and only Keith Pompey, a writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, covering the Sixers all season long. And Keith, you've been there. You've been around this season already. Media day yesterday. We had a little bit of practice today. Joel Embiid says he's going to lose 25 to 28 pounds, or he already has. What are you seeing out there? Do you like what you see? I know they're trying not to allow him to practice too much to remain healthy.
Yeah, you know what? I do like what I see. But before I go into that, I want to welcome you to the show. And I really look forward to working with you. And I'm a big fan of your work. Big fan of your work. So welcome to the show. Now, the thing about Joel, you know, when we talked about his weight loss, 25 to 30 pounds. He looks good. Now, again, that's what his body looks like, fits like when you see him, his appearance, he looks good. You can tell that he lost the weight. It's legit. In regards to how's he doing right now, today at practice, he did everything up until the scrimmage, right? And they're saying they're trying to bring him along slowly, for the playoffs. They want him to be 100% healthy. But to me, it's one of those you got to do the wait and see approach to see how it goes. But, the last time we saw Joel, the big question is the last time we saw him in the Olympics, he still had the knee brace on. His mobility wasn't the way it used to be. When he was in the playoffs, he was struggling mightily to get up and down the floor and to stay off the court, right, with the knee. So, right now, it's going to be, I think we may have to be a little patient because it's not going to change overnight. And I do like the approach that the Sixers are taking in regards to resting them. But, as far as his body losing weight, he looks good. And the key thing about that is when you shed those LBs, you take less pressure off your knee. So to me, that's the first step. But we'll have to see how he plays in the preseason.
I don't know if Sixers fans are going to like that, Keith. Being patient is definitely something they don't like. But I think when you look at it right now, you've seen it year after year, not even just with Joel Embiid. You look at players like Kawhi Leonard, somebody that sometimes will play the second half of the season so that he's ready for the playoffs. If the Philadelphia wants a championship, Joel's going to have that same atmosphere, that same approach here. And the Sixers are doing just that. They realized that he can't play all season long. Joel doesn't care about all NBA anymore. He's already won that MVP. He's already been there. Don't even play him in the All-Star game. I wasn't even happy about him playing in the Olympics, although I'm glad he did because he says he finally won something. But I was even worried watching that if he was going to get injured. And Keith, you've been able to talk to Nick Nurse a little bit about it. What is his approach? Does he like that Joel Embiid is working out? Did he give anything more that Joel Embiid didn't give throughout media day?
Yeah, you know what? The great thing to point out when you mentioned Kawhi Leonard, we talk about when he won the championship with the Toronto Raptors.
Yep.
They managed him the way that they're trying to manage Joel Embiid, right? Nick Nurse was the coach. So there was a times where Kawhi didn't practice. There was times where Kawhi just didn't play. He didn't do a lot of things. So Nick Nurse does have practice with that, right? He experienced that. He won a championship by doing that. And the thing with Nick is today what he said is, things changes. They change from day to day, right? So right now he can't even envision if Joel is going to play in the preseason or not. Right. But the one thing is, well, from what I saw was when we walked in there for practice, Joel was sitting down, getting treatment on his knee, trying to take, the necessary steps in regards to recovery. So I do think that Nick Nurse is the best coach for what, Joel is about to go through.
And a lot of people even said that last season with him coming in. He's somebody that knows how to coach in the playoffs, especially in this Eastern Conference. You're going to see that not only throughout this season, but also with Joel Embiid. And I want to go back to the point, too. We mentioned earlier that Joel says he doesn't care about all NBA. He doesn't care about all stars. But we know once the season come along, Joel's going to want to get out there. How do you think that's going around with the team right now? You have to think that Tyrese Maxey and Paul George just want Joel to be ready for the playoffs. But then again, it is a long season without the big fella if you can only play half of it.
Yeah, I expect him to play more than half, right? Just because, let's be honest, Joel can say what he wants. He can say, I don't care about MVP. I don't care about All-Star. I don't care about all NBA. Yes, he does. Let's just get it out there. They all do. So, Joel has to play, X amount of games in order to be considered for these awards, right? So I think that he'll play that. Now, the one thing is the good thing that the Sixers did is they gave him this money to show him because, he got the extension for $193 million, 3-year extension. That tells him, hey, we love you. We want you to be here. Don't worry about the other stuff. You are the man. You are the man. But now it's going to be up to Joel once the season goes on. And if he says, you know what, I really want to play. I really want to play tonight. Oh, man, I know I can dominate this team. You know what? Let me just go after him. Because it's easy for him to say right now, I don't care about that. I'm going to be the guy that's giving the ball up. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But that's not Joel's game. Joel is the man. He's the most dominant player in the NBA when healthy. So I feel like that's going to be a wait and see type of thing. But whenever people tell you, oh, I don't care about this, yes, they do. They all want to be all-stars. They all want to be MVP candidates. It's just a matter of, how patient is he going to be and things like that.
I think that's going to be tough because, as you just said, when he is healthy, he is one of the most dominant players in the NBA. Key word there, when he is healthy. The other thing about Joel Embiid, too, is I understand the Kawhi Leonard method. I looked at it actually last week when Derrick Rose retired, and I said, what if load management was a thing when he was in his prime? Could he play a little bit longer? I think you definitely have to manage Joel Embiid just a little bit more. But when you look at it, too, you want to make sure that he's in game shape when they are ready to go to the postseason. So making sure that he can play, stay in that game shape, and making sure when he does sit out, it's not for a long extended period of time. So he is ready to go. He's in that shape because practice is a lot different than gameplay. And we definitely all know that. But when we have our second segment here on the Locked On Sixers podcast, we have so much more to talk about. Possibly drama-free this year. We'll have to wait and see. And we have to tell you about FanDuel as well. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with the big return to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats as well, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 of bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. And make sure you visit FanDuel.com today. And if you do want to bet, you can go in the lines right now for Thursday Night Football. The spread is the Atlanta Falcons, the favorite at -110 over the Buccaneers. All right, so we have to go into the drama-free Philadelphia 76ers. And Keith, I know you said at Media Day that you believe it could be drama-free. There's no Ben Simmons anymore. There's no James Harden. There's no divas, no matter how many people want to write the narrative that, hey, maybe we get a story out there that the divas are there. Right now, they're not. Paul George comes in to Media Day and says that he's excited to play with Tyrese Maxey, to play with Joel Embiid. It's exciting, and I think it's exactly what not only Embiid needs, but also Tyrese Maxey to take it to the next level and really have that third true star in Paul George.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Now, here's the thing. And when we talk about drama-free, I mean, think about it. Last year, like you said, James Harden. Is James Harden going to show up? He didn't show up for Media Day. He didn't show up for the first day of training camp. Now, he did arrive later on that evening, and then he went to the next day's practice. But he only scrimmaged, I believe, once since he's been here. Since before he was traded. And then we all know about Ben Simmons. I'm not coming to training camp. Then he finally reports because they're finding him. But then next thing you know, it's like, oh, I got a bad back. Oh, I have this, I have that. So he doesn't play at all. And that whole time, instead of the 76ers focusing on those 2 seasons, what everything we asked about was, do you want Ben to play? Do you think Ben's going to play? When is Ben going to practice? And the same thing with James. And, luckily for them, they got James out of there. Like, he missed the first 3 games of their opening season on that road trip. And then they traded him before the 4th game. But yes, there's no drama. Now there's a lot of excitement. The thing that you get when you get a lot of new players are in the beginning, everything is a love fest. Everyone talks about, we're going to win a championship. We got the right pieces. We're going to do whatever. But what happens, and they try to fit in. But what happens is there's always someone who's unhappy with their role, right? Mm-hmm. They want to get the ball more. They want to do this. They want to do that. Now, so I think that for the Sixers to remain drama-free, they're going to have to minimize that. They're going to have to get people involved. They're going to make them all feel like they are a part of the mix. But, right now, I will say it kind of kills you from a storyline perspective, because in the past, the drama was great as far as like getting viewers here, as far as selling newspapers, as far as getting people on TV. So, you know what I mean? So this is completely different, and it's a little refreshing, but at the same time, it takes away some of the excitement in regards to like the drama that comes with it.
So there's no Daryl Morey is a liar. I will never trust him. I will never play an organization that he's been in. That was all James Harden a year ago. Now you look at Paul George. But I really like how you mentioned there, everybody is really happy now, right? You go into the preseason, you have these fantastic, talented players. You got some depth with you. When you really see what's going to happen is when this team loses, or they're having games without Joel Embiid, or if Tyrese Maxey gets a little banged up and he has to sit out for a few games. Right now, Paul George comes in and he says, I've never played with an elite point guard or an elite center on the same team. And he said, I've had to be the guy before, and I thought that's exactly what I had to be, and now I don't have to. Do you think that ego takes over a little bit at all? What are you seeing at these practices? Or is Paul George at this point in his career saying, I got these guys, let me play my role, and here we go? Too early to tell, or can you right now?
You know what? I think it depends on what the role is, right? And it also depends on how successful the team is. Typically when you get a team like this and they start winning, but you're not getting as many shots as you used to. You're not getting as many touches as you used to. You don't want to be that guy that says, hey, hold up. I know we're 10-1, but I need to get 5 more shots a game.
Right.
No, you don't want to do that, right? Typically that happens when a team starts struggling. But you can also look at it from the standpoint that Paul George is right. Paul George, I talked to him yesterday and I wrote something about it this morning on Inquirer.com. It's going to be in the paper tomorrow about how when he first came into the league, he wanted to be the man. Like when he was in Indiana, I got to score. I got to do this. I got to carry this team. But then he realized they go up against the Miami Heat and they had LeBron James, they had D Wade, they had Chris Bosh, and he couldn't compete. So then what happens is he goes to OKC, he's with Russell Westbrook, and then he goes to the Clippers and he's with Kawhi. And now he realized his strength in numbers. And he's 4 right now. You know what I mean? The guy just got a $211.5 million contract. So life is kind of good. So as long as they're winning and he knows that he can win a championship, I don't expect him to complain. I feel like the problem will occur if they start struggling and he feels like he's underutilized because he wants to help the team win a championship.
And that's for Nick Nurse to figure out as well. And I'm just so glad that this team does not have Doc Rivers anymore, because I feel like that could be an issue if Doc Rivers was the head coach. He underutilized a lot of talent, a lot of players. And the NBA is just so different now. It's no longer just having 2 stars out there. You're going to go win an NBA title. You need those other players that are going to play huge roles. Look at the Knicks last year. I mean, that's a team that defeated the Philadelphia 76ers with a ton of hustle guys around. And Paul George is much more than a hustle guy, but being a third star is not that shabby either. And when you look at this team right now, I mean, he's also going to have to step up. And I think I have to ask you this. Do you think it's going to be an issue with PG if Joel doesn't play a lot of these games early on? Do you think he's going to get used to kind of being that second guy and then Embiid comes in and all of a sudden he's bumped down to the third?
Now, you know what? I don't. I don't. I feel like, I feel like at that particular point, they kind of all know that right now, right? I feel like they know that his knee is messed up. PG knows that, let's face it, if Embiid doesn't play a lot early on, he's going to be able to have a larger impact on the team, right? So it's going to be him and the Maxey show. So I feel like that's not going to become a problem, especially in the playoffs, because, when you face it, you look at it, Paul George is playoff path is similar to Joel Embiid's. Like, they are 2 guys who have been known as great regular season players, and they struggled a bit for the large point of the playoff. Embiid is injury, Paul George injury too, and sometimes he just came up empty. So I think he knows that when Embiid comes back, it's going to take the pressure off of him. So again, I feel like if he's utilized the right way, and you say Nick Nurse is the guy that can do it, if he's utilized the right way and they're successful, everything is great. I feel like if he's not utilized the right way and they're struggling, then he can have a meeting with the coach like, Coach, what we going to do? I need to get the ball a little bit more,
And once again, patience too. It's a long season. There's going to be situations where Joel Embiid's not in the lineup. They'll have to figure it out and maybe change it the very next day. But they're professionals, and if anybody can do it, it definitely is head coach Nick Nurse. So we're going to jump ahead a little bit in terms of the Sixers season and talk a little bit about what a playoff matchup could look like. I know it sounds a little bit crazy, but a team that defeated them a season ago got that much better. All right, so when I heard this news, I don't know about you, Keith, I pretty much screamed out of anger after hearing Karl Anthony Towns is now a New York Knick. This is a team, and I watched Villanova growing up. I live right outside of Philadelphia, is where I used to live with my family. I watched all those players, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart. You get rid of Dante, but then you add Karl Anthony Towns, Julius Randle. I don't really think helped them that much. I mean, this is a little bit dangerous for Philly, Keith.
It is. But you know what? I think with a healthy Embiid and with Paul George, I think that they can get them. I do. I mean, and the reason being is, you know what I like about this team from the New York Knicks standpoint is that yes, you do have a center who's an all-star caliber center who can also step out. He can make threes. He can do a lot of different things, right? But at the same time, I feel like that I don't know if he can guard Embiid. You know what I mean? Like when we look at
Right.
it, that's the key. If Embiid can stay healthy, I don't know if he can guard him. I just don't. Now the one good thing is like, okay, well, even though the Knicks have him, they got a little bit smaller. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is because now you have, I get it. You have Josh Hart. They're saying he's going to play the power forward, right? But now you're saying like that lineup kind of helps out the lineup you have with the Sixers. Well, now you can have Josh Hart and Caleb Martin. Both of you guys are 6'4", 6'5". You guys are going to be the power forward. Let's make it happen. It's not going to really be a mismatch. So I feel like if you can get a guard, somebody who can guard Brunson, and then you can allow and you can turn everything all about Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns. And I love Cat, love him to death, know him personally, but I just don't think that he can stop Embiid. I think Embiid will be the X factor in that series, and he'll come up big.
I think a 50% Joel Embiid would definitely be better than Cat on his best day too. And I say that with no disrespect to Karl Anthony Towns, but Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid. He's one of the best centers in the entire game of basketball. He just demands attention. And we saw it last year. We've seen it every year of him playing. Now, you look at the New York Knicks, and this matchup really excites me, even during the regular season, but especially if it's a playoff matchup. You look at these two teams, and I think they do match up well. I think you're maybe going to get an old school basketball feeling a little bit with Cat and Joel Embiid, maybe if it plays out on the block a little bit. But, the one thing about the Knicks is they have a lot of hustle guys. You look at Josh Hart, you look at Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson, and Josh Hart was a little bit of a role player towards his career and then came with the Knicks and really was able to show up and show out. So, Keith, we've talked a lot about the stars for the Philadelphia 76ers, but who are those other pieces that you're seeing early on that you're excited about to see to go toe-to-toe with teams like the Knicks and others in the Eastern Conference?
Like when you talk about other pieces that I see, you talked about, you look at Josh Hart. You look at OG, over and over. We always butcher the guy's last name. I'm sorry, OG. I'm sorry. Please tell your mom don't kill me. Yeah, Anunoby. But Mikal Bridges, I like him a lot. Like I do. I like his fit there. I think that he's the type of guy who can guard multiple positions, of course, just like OG can, right? The thing though, I feel like, on this team, he's not going to be the guy that they're saying, okay, we need you to come out here and take those shots. Certain things trying to defend Maxey, right? He's going to be looked upon and say, okay, I want you to just guard Maxey, get underneath his skin, let him do. This team is different, the Knicks, than the Sixers. Whereas the Sixers are going to be bringing a bunch of veterans off the bench. After these Knicks are going to come and play, I think that's going to be the difference. So you're going to have the old against the young. And I think that's going to be the difference in this series as well. You know what I mean? But I love Mikal Bridges, like him a lot. But I just don't know, man. I don't think they could beat the Sixers. I don't.
I think it still hurts me that Mikal Bridges could have been a Sixer way back when, from Brett Brown was the GM, the acting one at the time, but a really good talent. But the Sixers team, you look at it right now, how it's constructed, it's definitely different in terms of depth and just the health that they have, the no drama, the drama-free Sixers right now. But Keith, you've been covering this team for a really long time, and I know it's only been 2 early days of the preseason, but what has stuck out to you so far, whether it's what you've been hearing from the coaches or the players? I mean, it's crazy to think it's right around the corner, and I know the NFL is here and the MLB playoffs are here, but we're focused and locked on the Sixers right now, people. What has stuck out to you the most, Keith?
Experience. I see a lot of experience. some people say this is an old team, right? You look at Kyle Lowry. I mean, you look at Eric Gordon. You look at Reggie Jackson and then Paul George but I don't consider them now. Kyle is the veteran. Like he's the guy. He's going to be like the grandpa of the team. And no offense to him, but I'm just saying, like, they're going to go to him for wisdom. Like, Kyle, what do we do in this situation? Which I think is great for Maxey, right? But you look at it and you see a lot of guys experience. And in the past, I felt like, they were benefit them a whole lot, having all that experience coming off the bench.
A ton of experience right now when you look at it for this Philadelphia 76ers team. I mean, it's exciting going into the season with Philly. Joel Embiid, one thing I want to point out too from him, and we alluded to it earlier, he said when he won the Olympic gold medal, he finally won something. He signs that extension. And, when Joel was first coming onto this team, Keith, everybody knew that he was a generational talent, right? He started basketball so late at 16 years old, really went through a lot of things with not playing, being injured, his brother passing away, and decided to stay in Philadelphia. But clearly the city means something to him. He's raising his son here as well. The one thing that I like about Joel Embiid right now, and this goes with the entire team, is that experience and that maturity is really starting to kick in. Before it was saying, oh, well, I'm not really a vocal leader. I lead by example. I'm not really going to say much. And now you see from Media Day, Joel Embiid saying, well, I've got to be the guy that Tyrese Maxey looks up to. He can make that next jump. Those two clearly have a really good relationship, but the maturity is there for Joel. And maybe that's something that could also elevate them a little bit, especially if he has to sit on the bench and can't play as much due to trying to keep him healthy, Keith.
Yeah. I mean, go talk about their relationship. I mean, this is a really good relationship. I mean, I feel like it's the first relationship that Joel had with another all-star to where both of them weren't trying to be the man, right? I mean, it's more or less he's looking at Maxey and he's saying, no, I need you to be the man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, stop deferring. I need you to take shots and I need you to focus. So, yeah, there is a maturity. But I also think that Joel also realized, even though, like we talked about in the first segment, yeah, you're always going to be the man. But I think he also realizes now that he also knows that, with that being said, it's like if when I'm on the floor and I do what I do, that's freeing more things up for Maxey to excel and to become the man. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I like in regards to maturity because we didn't see that before. Before it was more like, well, I got to do it all by myself. So if he can stay that way, then I think it'll be fine.
And listen, I mean, we're going to see what happens. As Keith said, you got to be patient. That's what it's going to take. It's just the preseason. The regular season hasn't started yet. What will both of these players look like? What will this team look like? Well, Keith Pompey is there every single day at Media Day doing a fantastic job. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter if you aren't already. Writing for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Fantastic work by Keith, as always, being able to be up to date on everything Philadelphia 76ers. And of course, we're going to be here with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, talking Philadelphia 76ers from now until the end of the season. So make sure you stay with Locked On Sixers on the Locked On Network. Thank you again for making Locked On Sixers your first listen today. Now, for your second listen, go find Locked On NBA, where the local experts keep you updated daily on all the biggest storylines ahead of the season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago. We've got more Locked On Sixers all week long. Thank you all so much for tuning in.